On today's show, we're going to be answering a question from a guy that wants to know how to handle it when you as a guy are actually the one that wants to wait a little bit more before doing physical things like kissing or getting in the bedroom. And I think it's an interesting question because I know in this program I've said time and time again that usually by date 2 or 3, a woman is expecting a kiss, expecting to go for some kind of move. But what if you are actually not comfortable moving that fast with the physicality of a relationship? Will women turn you away, or will they actually stick around if they know what to expect? Let's go ahead and get to this guy's question, and then I'll stop and start along the way and answer some questions as we go through it. So he says, Harry, here's the general situation. I'm a lifelong introvert. I'm not remotely shy. I have zero issue reading if someone wants to kiss me or make out. I've never gotten negative feedback or went for an unreciprocated kiss. I've had maybe 20 or so first kisses, and I just started dating again. 12 dates, 5 different women. I'm physically attracted to 4 of them. Despite this, I'm hesitant to get physical on the first 3 dates. Here's my concern. 1, I'm worried that if I go for a kiss before I'm ready, I'll confuse myself and make a mistake assessing it. 2, I feel bad when there's a clear moment when there's a kiss expectation and I don't take it. I feel like I'm creating a situation where my date may feel unattractive or unwanted, confused, and subsequently get down on myself that I might be doing something hurtful. 3, I don't want to waste anyone's time, including my own. So I'll stop here and say this. I faced this a lot in my college days because during that time, I was still trying to remain a virgin until I was married. And so when I would go on dates, I wasn't pushing any kind of physical or sexual agenda. I wasn't trying to get him in bed. I wasn't trying to suggest that we go someplace alone. If anything, I actually had more women that were making those moves for me, trying to get me to a solo location with a bed in it, so they could do some stuff with me. And I just, at the time, didn't even think that was able to happen because I still had some level of low self-esteem about my ability to be able to attract women in a way that they'd actually want to do some physical stuff with me. But I've been there. I get it where it's like you get to a point where you kind of start to notice that women actually want you to make moves and you're sitting there like, but like, what if I feel awkward about that? What if I feel awkward about making that move? Or I feel like if I do the move, she'll be happy, but I'm not ready for that. I've been there. And I'm going to answer more as we go through this, but I've totally been there and I totally get that. Continuing, he says, here's some context. It typically takes me 3 to 6 dates or so to figure out if I have a connection with someone. Until I have a sense of connection, I'm typically surprising my libido. Additionally, I find I'm less clear-headed and objective about assessing things like fit and relationship compatibility once I get physical. Making out is great, and in the past, I've mistook physical compatibility for relationship compatibility. My preference is to take things slow so that I'm less likely to make that mistake. Well, understand, guy, that there's nothing wrong or bad about wanting to move a little bit slower. In fact, I've also said on the show before that it's better for you guys out there to actually wait a little bit longer with sexual physicality in particular for that very reason, is because at the point where you start getting physical with somebody, you might be so turned on by them physically, and then your oxytocin's in your brain and it's making you feel really good about them, that you may start to avoid and miss red flags that the other person is sending out there. Whereas if you take a little bit more time to really get to know them, to talk to them, to take them on dates, you can have a clearer head about assessing them because the physical side is not in the way. Now, obviously, I'm not judging anybody that gets physical early because, again, I've done the same. I've had it where the first date to somewhere between the first and 4th date, I've gotten physical. And I've also had women I dated where I waited 2 or 3 months before we did anything because I was like, I want to take my time for some reason with this person to really feel them out. So whatever you're feeling, whatever's going to work for you, that is completely fine. But I understand how you could worry about how the woman's going to take that. And I'll get to that in a second. So he says, I'm feeling bad that I may be causing some women I'm dating to feel unattractive or unwanted by not making a move. I genuinely respect that everyone is busy and don't want to waste anyone's time. That said, I'm simply not going to go for a kiss out of social expectation. It's a non-starter. I don't even mind if it ends our dating. My goal is to avoid making my dates feel unattractive, desired, or wasting their time. Curious on your general thoughts. Considering there's a 2nd or 3rd date cultural expectation that something physical will happen, do you have any thoughts on my hesitation? So here's what I think. And I'll lay this with a story of mine. So I had a friend of mine from high school that I recently met up with pre-pandemic, like 2 years ago. And he was telling me about his love life. So both of us at one point were trying to remain virgins until we were married. At 23, I lost my virginity. But my friend over here from high school, he actually managed to hold out. And so he said he did a whole lot of dating. He studied books. He read up on what to do. He knew how to get women on dates. He knew how to talk to them, all this great stuff. But he was not wanting to break his vow to remain a virgin until he was married. And so he would let girls know in advance, hey, this is kind of like what I'm about and what I'm going for. And if they liked it, they'd stay around. And if they didn't agree with that and wanted to get physical, then obviously that wasn't meant to be, and he'd move on to somebody else. And inevitably, he got married, and now they got like 3 or 4 kids, okay? So why do I say this? I say this because I know that as an introverted guy, there may be a fear that if you're not going as fast as other guys out there in reference to kissing her or getting physical in the bedroom with her, that she may lose interest. And what I'm here to say is that it really is for women a lot of times about setting the expectation. You see, if you're going on dates, for example, and you have in your head, okay, I'm not going to kiss this girl until like the 6th date, and she needs to just be okay with it. Well, the problem is, of the two of you, only you know that plan. Now, if you were to be able to tell this woman what your plan is, then there'd be an expectation on her end that that's going to happen. Why is that important? Because right now, if you're going out there not telling women what they're doing while you're in your head saying, well, I know I like her, I'm just wanting to wait until the 6th date. They don't know that. So all they're thinking is, it's been date 4. Why isn't he kissing me? Why isn't he trying stuff in the bedroom? Does he find me attractive? Is he possibly gay? Does he like me? Is he seeing other women and that's why he doesn't need it from me because, he's getting it from these other women that he's not telling me about, et cetera, et cetera. And these women will build up these stories in their head about how you find them unattractive, and they make a lot of assumptions. But because it's so early on in the dating process, they don't want to ask any questions because they don't want to fear possibly like what the real answer could be. Like they think if they ask the question, you're going to give them an answer that's like, well, I don't really find you attractive, or I am seeing somebody else or whatever. And they don't want to hear that either. So it's easier for them to just kind of go away, and they're going away still liking you, but thinking, but he doesn't like me and I don't want to face that hurt. So I'm going to bounce out first. So that's what happens when you don't tell them. Now, when you do tell them, and I typically tell you this, on the first date, you should be having conversations that will in some way set expectations. And you don't have to do it in a direct way. Women are very good at passive language. So this is the case where you can use the language that best suits women to be able to convey to them your message. I typically do this through like stories, or like if a woman asks me a certain question about something, I can then use that question as a segue into talking about these kind of things. So for example, let's say I was a guy that didn't want to kiss somebody till like the 6th date. For example, at some point on a date, usually women will say, so tell me about your previous relationships, or why didn't they work out, yada, yada, yada. At which point you could say, well, I had this one girl that I was seeing last year and we were getting along great, but she wanted, this is going to sound weird, I know, but she wanted to get physical with me a little earlier than I was ready to. Because I know I like to take my time to get to know somebody. So it might take me between 3 to 6 dates before I decide to even kiss somebody, let alone get them in the bedroom. But, so I had told her that, and she didn't like that. So we couldn't see each other anymore. And I was trying to explain to her, it doesn't mean that I don't like you if I haven't kissed you by date 3. It just means that because I really do want to make sure that we know each other and that we're right for each other, I don't want physicality to get in the way of that. At the point that I feel like that we are meant to be together, or that we're, on a good dating path, then I start to open up and feel better about those physical things, So that's how you could explain it to a woman. Now, when she hears this, or if you're having a good first date, she now has a choice to make. She can either go along with that program, or she can decide not to. But the point is, you've said it. So if she decides to continue going with you, she'll know if you're on date number 4 and you haven't kissed her yet, she'll know, well, I know I want to kiss from him, and he hasn't kissed me yet, but maybe that just means he's still building up to me because he's still asking me out. We're still going out on these regular dates and having a good time, and he seems to really enjoy my conversation, and he's complimenting me and all these other things. So even though I don't have the kiss as evidence that he likes me, there's these other things over here that shows that he likes me, so I'm going to assume he still likes me. But part of that's because you've told her, hey, if I don't try to go for a kiss right away, or if I'm not trying to hit you up for sex by date 4 or 5, that doesn't mean I don't like you. It just means I'm still getting to know you. But if I'm inviting you out, I'm still having a good time. And so it's all about expectation. If you set the expectation and you tell women this stuff, then if nothing else, they'll at least know what's on the table and they can decide. But it's better to do that than to only have that plan in your head and not in her head, And she's on these dates wondering if you really like her or not because you're not trying these things, okay? So there's nothing ultimately wrong with you wanting to wait, but there is something wrong with not letting a woman know that that's your game plan, because she might be cool with the game plan, but if she doesn't know that's the game plan, she could just think that you just don't like her at all, okay? And so I'm all for letting women know in advance what the game plan is. Now, with that said, for those of you that are watching this like, well, if I want to have sex with her, should I say I want to have sex by the first date? Don't do that. No, but I have plenty of videos talking about like the segue into physical relationships and how to tell the timing of that for her, when it's good or whatever. But your timing is just as important. So if you're a guy that actually wants to wait, if you're a guy that wants to wait until you're freaking married or engaged or whatever before you do any kind of physical whatever, that's fine. That needs to be a discussion. If you have the discussion, then you don't have to be in your head worrying about how she's going to take it if you don't do these things, because it'll all be out on the table. And that is actually the best way to try to handle that situation.